Hi, it's Imogen here with my guest Shay Seaborn, and this is our sixth and final conversation for now in this series about stress and trauma and how the Alexander technique can help. And we've talked about all sorts of different aspects of this. And today, our subject is 3 gateways to presence using interoception, proprioception, and exteroception to foster resilience. Now, that probably sounds really complicated, but it's not. So we'll break that down. So just to introduce Shay, she's a trauma awareness activist. She's been my client for maybe nearly 3 years now. She's become a friend and she's a trauma survivor. And I'm an Alexander Technique teacher, and I use my approach, which I call body intelligence, to work with my clients. So these conversations are kind of putting in the public realm in a more cohesive form many conversations that we've had over our time getting to know each other and working with each other. All right, long welcome. Hi, Shay.
Hi. Thank you.
So we've called this 3 gateways to presence, and presence is a word that we hear a lot, especially in terms of mindfulness. What do you mean by it, and why is it important if you're feeling stressed or you're dealing with trauma?
I define presence as the ability of being in the present, which seems like it should be a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
But for human beings, because of our brains, it's not. Most people are present, some portion of the day. Everybody has their tolerance for being present.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we can cultivate as part of taking care of our brain and nervous system health.
So it would seem like why I'm just off the top of my head, why aren't we present, and why maybe especially if we're stressed or have been traumatized, why might those things kind of create barriers to the accessibility of being present?
Well, worry is a big one. A lot of people's tendency, and mine is huge, to think about what's already happened or worry about what's going to happen. And when we're focused on those things, we're actually telling our nervous system that things are not okay.
Right.
Building back those pathways in a chronic way, if that kind of stress is chronic.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people can recognize that. We're either thinking, worrying about the future, catastrophizing what might happen, or we're going over what happened in the past, and I'm forgetting the term exactly for that. Ruminating, that's the one. Yeah. And both of us, those things take us out of the present in a non-productive way. Of course, we have to plan and but that's a little different from those other ways that take us out of being present. I think you can plan and be present, actually. Yeah.
Yes. Very good. Yeah. Well, and we all, forget our keys or lose our train of thought, we have these indicators that tell us that we're not being present. Sometimes I've come back in the house 3 times. What was it I needed to get before I could leave? And I find for me that kind of forgetting something because I'm not present kind of builds, it snowballs. Then I get agitated that I can't remember. And then I go, oh gosh, my brain isn't what it used to be. And I'm ticked off because I deserve to have a good brain. So
it's taking you further and So it's taking you further and further away from being present to what's actually happening right now, which could be just a minor little inconvenience that you have to go back and get your keys.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my brain can spin it into, you know, this is just like every trauma repeating itself again. You know, not really that extreme, but
sure.
You know, that it is an extreme thing, even if it doesn't go that far, and it's really bad for the body to, you know, be in that. So I'm learning to slow down when I forget things and actually laugh about it. Sometimes, you know, I'll put on a silly voice and, you know, say funny things about myself and enjoy that instead of spinning.
Oh, that's great. But I think probably everyone can relate to that pattern to some degree. So being present will help diffuse or take us out of the pattern that's
yes.
destructive potentially. Yeah. All right, so let's get on to these complicated sounding terms. So interoception was the first of our list, and so what is it and why is it important? Yeah.
That's another thing we all have to varying degrees. Apparently, some people are born with very little capacity for interoception to the point they don't know when they're hungry, thirsty, tired, or have a full bladder. Those are all things that most of us recognize pretty well, although sometimes we get hangry, or sometimes, you know, we get in the habit of pushing ourselves so we don't recognize when we're tired, or you know, we don't pay attention to thirst. Those are all really good basic things to pay attention to, of course.
So it's being able to sense what's going on in our body, basically, being aware of our inner state.
And those are you know, bodily need oriented aspects of it, but there's also the aspect of, you know, the energetic feeling and the pain, and I don't even know how to describe some of the signals I get because of you know, the abuse that's lodged in my inner space. But neuroscience says that enhancing interoceptive awareness increases our capacity to self-regulate physiologically and emotionally, and that improves our resilience and puts us in the engineer position on the train of our life. So it's pretty big stuff.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about, you might think, well, why would I want to be present to a pain in my body? Right? How is that going to help my stress level?
Right. That's what I've had a hard time with, because I have so much pain, and that's part of the reason I learned to dissociate, because who wants to be, you know, in a toxic waste dump of pain and agonizing memories? Not me. But through all the processes I'm learning and the new skills, including in a large part Alexander technique, I'm able to touch into those things and learn, like come into it with a curious mind, which gives me some distance from being in the pain. And that's something that's really important for all the aspects of my recovery. You know, if I'm having a flashback or a memory or whatever, if I can go like experience it from the angle of being curious about it rather than afraid of it, I can learn what I need to do in order to resolve that little aspect of the trauma.
I love that idea of being curious, which I think is inherent or a part of, for sure, of my work. It seems like it helps us understand and be aware of what's going on, but also have a little distance from it. So that's kind of mindful. It's like observing yourself, right? So you are able to be aware of and notice the pain or the memory and whatever is going on for you. But it maybe also helps to have a little distance. So you're present to it, but you're not kind of in it. In a way that's, not helpful.
Yeah, being attentive to it rather than being bogged down or overwhelmed by it.
I'm actually thinking when we're in it, we actually might not be present to it, which sounds strange. In some, I'm. This is totally off the top of my head. Basically, because it takes us out of everything else we can be present to.
Right. Yeah. Especially if we're talking about like a flashback or a memory, something that's not happening now. Sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. Oops.
Yeah, no. So if you're, that's fine. So if you're saying like if you're having a flashback, but if you can be present enough to not just be immersed in it, to be able to see that that is what is happening, and it isn't the only thing. It isn't actually the reality of what is happening now. I mean, the flashback is happening now, but the thing isn't happening now.
Right. Yeah, and that's what that practicing presence and including interoception has helped me be able to experience a flashback and watch it like not like a movie. I mean, I'm still having the, sensory experience. Some flashbacks are, full sensory. I hear the same sounds, feel the same, touch, smell the same smells, and they're really overwhelming. But I've been able to kind of have a dual awareness now where the flashback is happening, but I'm also watching it and making observations about it. Like, oh, that's what this is about. This muscle over here is telling me, that memory. And then, I can use that information to change the story of what happened to me, which helps my nervous system learn that it's in the past now.
And so what from our work together, I'm thinking there's some things that we've done that have helped you be present in a way that gives you that space, that distance. Is there anything in particular, or something that we could share with our viewers?
Well, I think the first thing I'd like to say is I want to emphasize just how gentle and non-coercive Alexander technique is, because the more I do it and the more I learn about my nervous system and, trauma resolution, the more I understand that the non-coercive aspect is so important, because you just never know what thing is going to trigger a trauma survivor. I was trying to help a friend calm down over the phone recently, and I'm trying to tell her to do mindful breath with me, and she goes, I can't. I have trauma issues related to breathing. So that's one of the things about Alexander that's so great. I had tried initially a meditation that I would listen to that was, geared toward interoception, and it triggered the heck out of me, and I could only listen to a few minutes at a time. And, I did build up a tolerance for it, and it did become really helpful. And it was one of the things that I think helped me figure out I needed, somatic therapies. But it was also kind of re-traumatizing. I mean, it was so much effort to desensitize myself to this stuff. And yet when I do Alexander, it's going to take a lot longer, but it's not going to hurt.
That's a real plus.
Like ripping the Band-Aid off, You're just like, hey, it's okay. Whatever you can tolerate is great right now. As far as specific, go ahead.
I'm thinking what we shared when I taught the cycle a couple of videos before, this idea of noticing ease, and it'd be, if you're interested, I'd go back to that video. But that gives us a little way in that's a bit different, in which to see ourselves and what is going on right now.
And it's so flexible and adaptable. You just reminded me of some of our early visits when I came to you for in-person appointments, and I was having some pain in my leg that was pretty serious. And you asked if I could find a place near that pain that wasn't pain and put my attention to that. And yet you invited me to, you didn't tell me to. And so that helped me be curious about it. And I went, oh yeah, I can. And I noticed when I put my attention to the non-painful place next to the pain, my attention didn't focus on the pain. And so it made it more tolerable.
Yeah, it changes our relationship with it a little bit, and it's a little bit at a time, right?
That's what we need, especially if we're traumatized. I mean, everybody needs things gentle, especially now with, what's going on. Everybody's under stress and having a hard time, and doesn't need to be coerced or shamed about, not having the right amount of interoception.
Yeah. Yes, we are where we are. And I think Alexander can help us improve that awareness in a gentle and I won't say stress-free, because what in the world is stress-free, but in a way that's not going to put stress on you.
Mm-hmm. I think another real helpful Alexander moment is when we're kind of moving into proprioception. So
okay, well maybe we just go there. So let's start proprioception. Do you want to just describe what proprioception is?
It's awareness of your place in space, in the room, even extend out to your community, the planet. We can think of our place in space at all those different levels, but it's especially important at the body level, because it helps us not bump into things or trip.
Yeah. So the way I think of it is, and I hadn't really thought quite out into infinity and beyond in the way that you were saying, but in terms of our physical body, it's awareness of our position of ourselves and the parts of our body, and of how we're moving through space, and I think it's probably in some ways this one that Alexander might, I think it's connected very much to all of them, but it's maybe more known for that because it very much relates maybe a bit more to posture and movement, which is what Alexander is known to help with.
And proprioception is really important for movement.
Well, yes. So I think you already said, why is proprioception important? And I'm thinking on a very basic level, exactly what you said. It helps you not bump into things, and because you're more aware of what you are doing.
Yes.
And you're also more aware of what the environment around you is. So so how you move and whether there's a step in front of you might be a helpful thing. And then it sounds obvious, but it's also something that we can develop more. There's a term that's sometimes used in Alexander speak of I think it's kind of a funny term. They call it debauched kinesthesia, as in faulty sensory perception or faulty sensory. So basically meaning that our awareness of how we are or where we are in space is actually not accurate. So if you had your arm straight out, it might be like this, but you perceive it as being horizontal. And that's so working with Alexander traditionally can really help us get a more accurate sense of where we are, what we're doing, and how we're doing it.
That's really beneficial.
Yeah.
Someone who's had complex PTSD most of my life, I have fond memories of bumping into things, and my awareness is often so low that I don't even remember what happened. I'll have a bruise and somebody will say, "Oh, how'd you get that bruise on your arm?" And I can't remember because I was so not connected to my environment.
Not present, sounds like. So why, I mean, is it, I'm thinking it's more than just not wanting to bump into things is the reason why it could help people who are stressed or traumatized to have a better proprioceptive sense.
Well, of course, it's one of the things that also brings us into the present and into our bodies. And for most of us, most of the time, if we are present and in our bodies, we're probably not in the threat of immediate danger.
Well, I'm thinking what can take us out of being present and out of having I guess a healthy proprioceptive sense of things in the moment is when we're doing exactly what we were talking about when we were talking about interoception, when we were talking about presence, when we're worrying about something in the future, we're hurrying because we're late and we're thinking about that, and so that's when we actually bang into the door because we didn't notice it wasn't open, or and I'm thinking the more stressed we are, this is probably what really gets affected in a very practical way most, because we're maybe more prone to injury, more because
or just spilling things, breaking things.
When one of the kind of key concepts in my work is bringing people to be aware of their contact with the ground and what's supporting them physically, and being literally aware of the space around them. Would you say that's tied into this sense in particular?
Actually, that was one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I think I went off the rails instead. The noticing the support of the floor under my feet and the the seat under my sit bones. Again, that brings me back to, even if it's just for a second, if that's all I can tolerate, I'm in my body and I'm present in the moment and recognizing there's no danger in this moment. That gives my nervous system this much of a break, which counts. And if you add that up, especially if you're doing these practices throughout your day, like you've so wonderfully helped me, integrate that into my day, that those little drops, it's like, filling a bucket with, drop, drop, drop is how we rebuild a nervous system. And you don't have to follow, a guru to do it, or remember everything that happened to you, or even any of it. You can just rebuild your nervous system. And Alexander is one of the ways that really has helped me.
Yeah, great. I think we should move on to the third one.
Oh, can I say one quick thing first?
You may.
It's a little off topic, but I think some people might really find this helpful. One of the values of proprioception for me is that it can be used to express or release instinctive body-based protective reactions that are part of the incompleted trauma release cycle that made the trauma stick. It's a more advanced technique, and I can't get into it here, but if anybody's interested, they can do a search for it. Just look up somatic experiencing therapy, and you'll find a lot of information about how that works. It's really valuable.
Okay.
And again, that's how one of the ways I see Alexander meshing so nicely with the somatic experiencing that I'm doing. It just really supports it. And I think it's a big part of the reason, that I'm making such good progress.
Oh, good. Yeah, thanks. That's great. Okay, exteroception. Exteroception. Am I exception? You say it, and then
Yeah,
tell us what it is.
I always want to say exoskeleton, which is
Yeah.
Yeah, these are our senses: sight, taste, touch, smell, hearing, and I would add the sixth sense, which is neuroception, what we read with our nervous systems. I won't get into that, but yeah,
so it's the stimuli that are coming from outside of us that we perceive with our senses. And of course, there are more than the standard 5 that we learned at school. So I agree with you.
Yeah, those are what we use to read our environment. And people who are traumatized or stressed, similar to the other aspects we talked about, probably have reduced sense of what's going on, especially if we're focused on, when we use our beautiful electronic equipment and we're focused down, like we talked about before, where we're blocking out the whole environment. Really, it's just us and this machine. It also can take us, having it can bring us back to the present. And that's one of the things I practice when we do the cycle. I kind of move between noticing ease in myself and noticing ease in my surroundings, because I feel that, why not, right? Ease everywhere, inner and outer.
My feelings, when I first started with that practice, it was very much body based, what I was noticing. But if I have a sense of ease out there, there's nothing for me to tense up against. Right? So it actually helps sorry, I interrupted your train of thought.
It's on down the tracks now.
So how do you see what we've done together as tying in with this concept?
Well, again, the touching, the support of the floor and the seat, those are kind of both interoception and exteroception, really, because if I'm noticing the support of the floor on my feet, I'm noticing the floor as well. And same with my seat, and and then you'll guide us to notice the space around us, above us, below us, behind us. And most of us don't really think of that. Especially behind us. And we're
very focused this way and maybe a little bit to the sides. But there's up and there's behind us, there's below.
It's an interesting sense to gain that sense. I have more of it now than I did before we started working. I still, want to keep practicing, of course, but it like we've said, it changes my relationship with my environment, and it also gives me some of that sense of being more in the driver's seat, just because I'm like on top of my environment. I know what's here, so I feel safe and I can move things or whatever. It feels more in control for me.
Right, so that's literally, if you've got a better awareness of your physical environment, you can actually, especially in your own space, you can create it to be the best for you as much as possible. I'm thinking that these all interconnect, because when you gave the example of looking at your phone, so if you were going to tune in, have an awareness, there could be that interoceptive sense of what's going on in me as I look at the phone, and it's also the awareness of the phone, which I guess is the exteroception bit. But also there could be a proprioceptive sense that you notice that your position in space might not be as advantageous as it could be. So it feels like they all can merge together in just a better awareness of your whole self in relation to your environment. How does awareness of, I don't know, mind, emotions, cognitive stuff, does that come into any of those? Is that something, another section?
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, it's, we're so complex and it's all interrelated, but yeah, I think it's really a different topic area. These are all involved, like very somatic, and that's more of the cognitive. There's certainly a lot of value in cognitive therapy for a lot of people, even traumatized people, but not as much. We really need to have an inner sense of safety before that part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, can really come online well enough to do the cognitive work.
So for exteroception, if we're talking about our awareness of stimuli coming in through our different senses, if it's from someone else, if it's there's someone angry, right? And is it our awareness of how we are reacting to them, or is it our awareness of them, or is it both? Or is that something else completely?
Well, it's complicated too, but yeah, I mean, when we read another person, like say you walked in the room and you were mad because Puffkin pooped on the floor again.
That's my cat, if anyone wants to know. And he doesn't do that.
I just like to make fun of him because he's always judging me. And you would come in and you'd be mad, and I would immediately feel that anger because it wouldn't just be, the expressions on your face. That would tell me a lot too, but I would read energy from you. You would be radiating this anger, and if I'm not aware of it, I could get caught up in the anger with you and be mad at Puffkin too and like start a revolt or something.
You wouldn't want to do that.
I know, I wouldn't want to take him on.
Yeah.
Or I could use what I understand about all of these senses and witness your anger and validate it. Go, yeah, that would tick me off too. I understand why you're angry. And then after you've had your witnessing, I could use my nervous system to help you calm down to a level where we can start talking and have a good time. Right,
because you were present enough to not get caught up in my stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And then that in turn can help the person who maybe isn't so present or is having a hard time or whatever.
Yeah, and that's really what we're here to do for each other. My favorite neuropsych, Dr. Dan Siegel, talks about compassion burnout, and that relates to this. He says, not burnout, it's boundaries. People get confused, and they need to understand that's you over there with your anger about your cat, and this is me over here. And what I'm feeling isn't you inside of me. It's not your anger. It's my compassionate response to what's going on with you. And having that ability to zoom back and see, observe, and be curious allows me to not get caught up in your activation level while I'm still witnessing that for you. And then that helps you calm down too.
And I think you've just described what empathy or healthy empathy is. Because you're feeling with someone that, but you don't want to be,
Yeah, in it, like you said.
In it,
Yeah.
because that's not going to help them or you, because
Right.
then
That's part of the energy vampire dynamic.
I'm sorry,
The energy vampire dynamic. Not that that's necessarily always the case, but that's how energy vampires, would work. They look for somebody who doesn't have that healthy boundary of empathy, where they can say, yeah, I feel bad for what you're going through and I would like to help you. And that's the empathy and compassion. And then the kindness is, here, let me clean up the cat poop for you because I know it all.
Right.
You're like, come on over.
Yes. As I say, he's not done that yet. So I'm thinking that one of the things, in fact, I would say the key thing that Alexander Technique helps you with is to help you be able to pause. It might even be so minute that it's not noticeable, but so that you have an awareness of how you are reacting to any stimuli that are, I mean, life is just everything's a from our own internal thoughts and sensations to everything that's coming there, and it's how we react to it that can make a big difference to how we are affected by things. And it helps us do exactly what you described with the helps you not be a, what was it, energy vampire? What was it?
Yeah, energy vampire, yeah.
Yeah, or not succumb.
Yeah, to them. Or get empathy burnout. Yeah. Yeah, it's part of having a healthy boundary.
Yeah.
And yeah, the pause is really, I think that's almost like the crux of all the Alexander work is the pause.
Because that's what helps you be able to apply the thinking and awareness throughout your day at different times. And yeah.
And it breaks that cycle of distress.
So pausing, being able to learning how to pause. And that pause is stopping to be present, to notice what is going on inside, outside.
And be curious.
And be curious about it. Yeah, that's lovely.
And that really automatically puts us in the pro-social affect. When we approach things curiously and pause to be present, then we can recognize, the safety, and then we feel able to connect, open. If you're scared, if you're afraid of, going out of your house because of the virus or any number of things, even subconscious things, you're going to be much more protective and not be able to connect with other people. And the experiences I've had, the more I learn about the interpersonal neurobiology, the more exciting it is, especially looking back on previous experiences where, for instance, with a shipmate that has diametrically opposed religio-political views, but because we met on what Dr. Siegel calls the plane of open possibility, which happened to be this beautiful wooden ship, and wanted to be good shipmates, we got along really well until we found out we were, diametrically opposed.
It's a bit of a sidetrack, but it's amazing when you have a shared activity and love for something that it can do away with all sorts of other things that may have been boundaries to friendship if you hadn't had this shared activity. Anyway,
yeah, it's a huge thing, and the sense of community there is also really important. Well, he was new; he was a trainee coming on board, but he had the right attitude and very outgoing, playful person, so easy for me to get along with. Except when this event occurred, I won't go into detail, but there was a rupture, and the crux of it is that because we'd had so many of these positive experiences, hanging out at night and singing sea shanties while we drank beer, and playing pirate games and going out for meals, working together in class and all those things.
Sounds fun on your ship.
Well, it is fun. It's a lot of hard work too, but it is fun. And the community is really what Captain Lauren says. You come for the sailing, you stay for the community. And really it's a very restorative community, because the overall affect and the leadership affect is, we are alacritous, we are welcoming, we help each other, we try to do our work with a smile, and that's infectious. And that was a big part of the reason that this person and I could meet on that plane of possibility. And because of the previous interactions we had, when that rupture occurred, both of us valued the relationship more than the religio-political stance. So we figured out a solution. And we're not, friends, we don't hang out, but when we see each other, which is once in a blue moon, we're like, hey, it's just this wonderful feeling. That's and I think, great. Gosh, if everybody could do that, if somebody diametrically opposed to me and I can do this in this instant, well, then lots of other people can do it in all kinds of instances. And we need that kind of awareness and ability these days.
Yes. Well, I totally agree. It's maybe slightly off track, but I don't think it's totally unrelated to what we've been talking about today. I think it's time to wrap this up. Just to say that all these three senses, would you call them, or awarenesses, or concepts? All these sections are. It's really good to have things to help you cultivate them and grow them. Alexandra is definitely a way into that.
Yeah, there are lots of ways anybody can find, but this one is right here, and it's so portable and practical and flexible and non-coercive.
So I do want to mention that I finally got my course together. I'm going to be running an online 6-week program, group coaching program, starting the middle of July. So if anyone is interested in that, just you can comment or message or reach out. I wanted to mention, if you get on my mailing list, you'll get information automatically about it. And I've got a free download, which is on 7 tips to reduce stress now, which will all be little ways to stop and be more present for a moment. So that would tie in with today too. So whether you're interested in the course or not, you might be interested in that. So I'll just put a link to that in the comments later. And
I'll just say I highly recommend the course and the website.
Thank you, Shay. I didn't make her say that. Yes,
Pumpkin did.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Shay, for doing these conversations. I feel like we will have more to talk about at some point in the future, but this seemed like a good place to finish up for now. So thank you again.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I have to. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.